Yeah, that's up to the screen there. Good evening, folks. I'm Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics Unfiltered. Let's talk about our elected officials and what have they accomplished here in the city of Yonkers. And I want people to comment, right? Let me know. This stems from comments, maybe a few comments I've had about why I speak about certain elected officials, specifically the majority leader. I have made a lot of episodes where I discussed Tasha Diaz, the majority leader, council member representing the 3rd district. And recently I had someone ask me why he's so negative. And, and I want to clear that up because I don't want to be negative. So I wanted to go through the city officials, the Yonkers City Council. What have they accomplished? What have they done in their time in office? And if there's anything that I leave out or maybe I don't mention, please, by all means, let me know about it. I do want to know. I would definitely correct myself. I have no problem doing that. Absolutely. So I want to talk about them. So let's go. And if you don't know, it's good to know about who are your council representatives, right? City Council President Lakeisha Collins Bellamy, she was elected last year. This is her first year in office. I hear that they're in a hiatus, so they're not around. So pardon me if I've wondered where they've been recently. She's first year. I've had people say to me, where's Lakeisha been? Freddie, talk about the fact that she's been MIA. She's been absent. What has she done where, hasn't appeared anywhere really, hasn't thrown any, thing for the community, hasn't, nothing that she's done has been her own doing. Some people have been criticizing that. And I haven't said it. I haven't mentioned it too much on the podcast, right? I've been easy on the, city council president. And the reason being because this is her first year. I've been trying to give her a break. But again, nothing really. She's kind of been MIA. And let's see, maybe next coming year will bring something different. District 1, Shanae Williams. She's been in office for a while now. She was first appointed in 2008 by the mayor. And then she has to run after that, was elected, I believe, 2019. She has a Bachelor of Science from SUNY Albany, holds the highest GPA award of her class for 2011, right? So people say a lot of comments that they're not intelligent, they're inept, they're not, capable of the position they're in. But Shanae Williams has a bachelor's and had the highest GPA in 2011 of her class, served as business administrator for New York State Assembly. And I believe that's where she built her relationship with the current mayor, Mike Spano. And she then became his assistant here in the city of Yonkers. She did get an MBA with a focus on leadership from Walden University and did attend the Yonkers Public Schools, according to her bio. Although Tasha Diaz screamed out very loud, "You didn't attend Yonkers Public Schools." I did. Remember that? Was she mistaken? Or are they lying on the bio, right? She, again, got her MBA focused on leadership and served as the liaison to the mayor's African-American Community Board, right? And she's still representing the District 1 there. Lakeisha Collins Bellamy, I kind of skipped her a little bit. First African-American elected to city council president. And that was a big thing. A lot of people were happy about that. It's kind of like Obama, when he got elected to become president. I think a lot of people of color thought that a lot was going to be different. And, I think a lot of people have been disappointed from what I'm hearing. Lakeisha Collins Bellamy is an attorney by trade, also works at Macy, the Municipal Housing Authority of the city of Yonkers, where there were some issues there because some wondered whether or not she was even eligible to run for city council president. Has something to do with the way she was being paid over at Macy and who was paying her. Was it federal funds? Was it state funds, county funds? There was that whole thing. And so some tried to challenge it, but kind of half-assed, And I hear Ron Matten actually put out a FOIA request to get information on exactly how she was paid. Never received that FOIA request. So there's still that, that question there. She has a bachelor's of political science from SUNY New Paltz, master's in public administration, and a JD from New York Law School. Former trustee at the Yonkers Public School Board. She was there for a while. Some say she was put there to introduce her to the community and kind of give her, a background, a track record, of having worked in the city and getting to know people. And that was the reason she was appointed there, because they knew she was going to run for city council president. They wanted Mike Cater out. And I'm going to talk about the affordable housing thing in a little bit, and I'll tell you some of the reasons why. District 2, Corazon Pineda Isaac, elected in 2013. She's been serving for a while. She was one of the elected officials that took advantage of the term extension, right? So she was voted in for a third term. This is her last. Former majority leader, not originally from Yonkers, and some said that she came here specifically to run for politics. And that's why she was here in Yonkers. Worked for AXA Advisors, obtained her Series 7 and Series 63, and I was rather impressed when I heard that. I got my Series 7 and 63, and that's a test that 60% of the people fail the first time they take it. I got to say I passed the first time. Got 85. Worked for George Latimer on his campaign, was the youngest elected, beating the incumbent by dozens of votes. That's what it says, dozens of votes. Now, I wonder if those dozens of votes were absentee ballots. Anybody know? Anybody recall that election? Advocated to make Yonkers a sanctuary city. And one of her legislations that she passed or introduced was to ban the box and a building registry for slumlords here in the city of Yonkers, which I hear actually still has not gotten passed or was never created. And she also recently worked on the registry for the affordable housing to show folks where affordable housing are located, what's open, where it's available, all their income requirements and stuff like that. Although they have one called affordablehousing.online.com. You can check that out. I've looked it up. It does give info on Yonkers. But I think they actually gave it to her now. They recently talked about it again. They were giving her a hard time, in my opinion. She was trying to introduce it. They didn't even want to hear about it. And one time she wanted to introduce it, but the city council president cut her off and said, wait a minute. Did you send out the email to all of us? Did we get to look at it? We can't do this if we didn't get a chance to review it, right? And it kind of shut it down right there. And District 3, let's move on. The majority leader, Tasha Diaz, current majority leader, first person of color to represent District 3. I thought that was interesting. She chairs the Education Committee. I thought that was interesting. No, just kidding. And Environmental Policy and Protection Committee. Former Girl Scout, founder of the Jefferson Terrace Cooking Academy, served as the president of the Tenants Association of Jefferson Terrace, runs weekly food drives, as we all are aware of, allocated millions of capital monies to improve parks around the city, according to her bio. Graduated from Saunders, is a licensed cosmetologist or got a license in cosmetology, studied early childhood education, and worked as an assistant teacher. There we go. That's the connection to education, right? So many wondered, how did she become the education chair? She didn't even graduate college or anything like that, has any education experience, but I guess she studied early childhood education. She studied it at one point and was an assistant teacher. So was I. As a matter of fact, I was an assistant teacher. Mr. John Rubo, District 4, elected in 2018. At that time, he was a Republican. He switched when he realized maybe it's better to be a Democrat if I want to remain in politics, right? Trump kind of screwed it up for all us Republicans. He's a small business owner, if you don't know. He's one of the owners of the Yonkers Brewing Company, right? He chairs the real estate committee. That's been a big, question there because of his association with his landlords over at the Yonkers Brewing Company. It's the landlords are AMS, the developers who are probably spending, the most money, if not, second in line there, spending the most money to next to that guy, Joe Cotter, who owns the land that Lionsgate currently sits on. And so they said, maybe he shouldn't chair the real estate committee because AMS is doing a lot of business in Yonkers, and that might be a conflict of interest. However, the now defunct Yonkers Ethics Board said it was okay. And then they disbanded. They're no longer operating. But there's some interesting things with the Yonkers Board of Ethics or Ethics Board, and I've spoken about it in regards to the person who was the secretary of that organization or that board. So check that out if you want to find out more information about it and what's interesting about that. District 5. Oh, by the way, John Rubo is the majority whip. He was recently named the majority whip in the reorganizing back, I think, in January. He wanted the majority leader position, but that was promised to Tasha Diaz, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But yeah, that's about it for Rubo right there. District 5, Mike Breen, who's now running for New York State Assembly. He is challenging Nader Sayegh. And, I'm leaning my support on Mr. Mike Breen for that position. Mike Breen was elected in 2012. Actually, he's the longest serving person there. 34 years. He also took advantage of the term extension as well. 34-year resident of the city of Yonkers. Very active in the community, according to his bio. Once owned a trip service transportation company. Graduate of Fordham Prep and Fordham University. Attended Fordham Graduate School of Business in Terrytown. Didn't say he graduated, so that's about it there. He's married, he has kids, and I believe says some of his children are in the Yonkers Police Department. District 6, Mr. Anthony Marante, a.k.a. Jim Hoffa. Just kidding. And I went on his bio, and there was nothing. No information there from Mr. Anthony Marante, a.k.a. Jimmy Hoffa. He is an accountant, I believe. I'm not sure. There's no information, but he does chair the budget committee. He's the numbers guy. He's the guy that keeps us safe, that makes sure everything keeps working. The sanitation is going good. The police department are well funded and have what they need. The fire department are funded and have what they need. He keeps us moving and operating. That's kind of like his spiel. He always does that. I'm the guy that makes sure that we are safe and that we have all our, first responders operating and moving smoothly and make sure they have money and everything they need. That's what he does, When you email Breen on issues in his district, he very rarely answers back, and you have to go to the mayor's office to get things done in this district. And that is true because I've had that same experience with Mike Breen as he represents the district that I live in. And we reached out to him in regards to our permit issue. We also reached out to Marante as well, and neither one of them did absolutely nothing. And you're right. We had to reach out to the mayor's office, and that's eventually what we did, right? And guess who's helping, right? The guy that people sometimes don't like. But hey, is what it is. Anyway, I want to go to Tasha Diaz because I do speak about her often, and people say, Freddie, why are you always on top of Tasha Diaz? You have a thing with women. I guess that's like the thing to say. Either you're crazy or you have a thing for women. I don't. It's really not that, Tasha Diaz. You are the majority leader. And anyone else that has an issue with my podcast, she is the majority leader. That means that I have to speak about her. This is basement politics. She is the majority leader. She was named recently in the reorganization meeting on January 3rd of this year, 2022. She replaced Corazon Pineda Isaac as the majority leader. And that did not go without its, drama. However, it didn't go well, as I said, with some of the other council members, specifically Shanae Williams and Corazon. They said she was not qualified. She was unqualified. Both voted no, in fact, to name her majority leader. And so that caused a rift, and there's been a rift ever since. Tasha Diaz blames it on hate and jealousy. They don't want to see her majority leader. I do think that Shanae did feel a certain type of way about that. I definitely feel, because she also went hard. She went the hardest. At least Corazon was more like political about it, So she went the hardest and, named, just kind of listed a bunch of reasons why she was not qualified for it. Why? And I want to go through some of those reasons, right? And so Shanae goes on to say that the majority leader is responsible for meetings with the mayor and commissioners, as well as the Democratic caucus, right? And the most important of those meetings is the budget meeting. So she has to be aware and understanding of those meetings and, have the capability to be able to communicate that back to the residents effectively and to make decisions effectively, right? Especially as the chair of the education committee. That's very important. I'll tell you why in a minute, why she should be understanding what's going on. Where's the money? Right? Where's the money? You're involved in these budget meetings. You're the chair of the education committee, yet There's not enough funding here to do what needs to be done to the Yonkers public schools, right? So why is that? So what has she done as a majority leader? What has she done? According to Shanae, Tasha Diaz has rarely submitted legislation, called the cops on residents expressing their opinions. She's threatened members of the council, including Shanae, cursed out commissioners and the deputy mayor, and told Rubo she was going to F him up. She said this in a meeting, right? She said this all out in a public meeting. She is the least qualified to serve as majority leader. She doesn't contribute to the conversation and doesn't ask questions or make suggestions. Yet that was the reason, or one of the reasons she gave for killing the housing ordinance, that she didn't have a seat at the table. But she supported it up until the last minute, right? But Tasha Diaz's nomination, for majority leader was supported by the city council president, and she was happy about that. She said that she wasn't even considering, throwing her hat in the ring for the majority leader position until she was encouraged to do so by Lakeisha Collins Bellamy, the city council president. And with that encouragement, she went and tossed her hat in the ring. And by gosh, she won. She won, right? She supported the affordable housing from the beginning. However, on the night of the meeting to overturn the mayor's veto, right, she surprised everyone when she voted against overturning the mayor's veto, and many were left wondering why. Everyone, including the city council or the former city council president, Mike Cater. And he has some things to say about that, right? So why did she overturn it? Many believe because she wanted to be named majority leader. She knew that was what's going to happen. This was probably all planned. I mean, if you listen to what Rubo said, it makes you wonder, did he know what was going to happen ahead of time when they killed the housing ordinance, right? There was no reason why the 20% affordable housing ordinance should have been killed with a super majority. It should have been passed unless somebody was compromised. And who was that someone? Tasha Diaz. I can't even say John Rubo because he voted no initially. Voting yes when he changed his vote surprised me, but when he voted against overturning the veto, again, I wasn't surprised because that was how he felt initially. But he said the reason why he voted yes and changed it to yes was because he wanted to indicate that there was a need for affordable housing. So he wants to say, yes, we need affordable housing here by voting yes. But I really don't want to pass this ordinance. But you voted yes. So you knew that it was going to get vetoed, right? And then you knew that time would come where there would be a vote to overturn that veto. And at that point, you would then vote no to overturn it, going back to your original position. Right. So, the affordable housing is something that is very much needed. It was very much needed. There's a affordable housing crisis in the city of Yonkers, Westchester County, and in the country. And these are things that are very important legislations that needed to be passed, and yet they failed us on this. That's what their job title and their job responsibilities are. Yet they failed us, and they want us to be all excited because they stand next to organizations that distribute food throughout Yonkers. Well, when people don't have a place to live, they can't take that food home, right? So Mike Cater, former city council president, back when it happened, said that in the low HUD, actually, he said, I wonder what happened. He wondered what happened. He said it was a stall tactic, and that once the developments were built, that then they would introduce a new ordinance. So basically, they are going to approve the developments now under the old ordinance. And once they're all approved and done, then they'll go back and then introduce a new one, which is what we saw happen. They recently introduced a new one. They gave some of the details. It's only 10 to 13%, depending on how the developers work it out. But it's not the 20% that was initially introduced and was supported by Shanae Williams, Tasha Diaz, and Mike Cater, and Corazon, because she was voting yes. And then Tasha Diaz killed it. and became the majority leader, and then has not introduced anything up until recently, but it's not become official or final. And it's still not what people would have liked to see. And there were a lot of people upset. A lot of people, especially in the Black community. So this is what I don't understand, how people will say, Freddie, why are you so negative? Why are you attacking Tasha Diaz? I mean, did we forget? Did we forget? What their job is to legislate. They're elected officials. They're not nonprofit organizations. They are not just community leaders. So distributing food could be done by other people. We can't legislate, right? We can't go up there and pass that housing ordinance. We are relying on Tasha Diaz and Shanae Williams and John Rubo and, everyone else, Corazon, right? But we can distribute food. So leave that to us, the nonprofits, and go do your job, because this is a need. This is a need. But the developers didn't want 20%. They didn't want that many people who are in need of affordable housing in their market rate developments. They didn't want that. So exactly what Mike Cater said is what's happening. That's exactly what's happening. So we got to see it. I mean, we got to stop playing this game. So again, this is why I talk about it. Simply why I talk about it. And why I mention it, because we have to understand what is going on in politics here in the city of Yonkers and why things don't get done. Because on one hand, we're complaining, right? When the ordinance was killed, people were upset, right? Yonkers NAACP, county legislators went up there to speak, members of the community, but now it's silent. And now some people wonder why Freddie's talking about Tasha Diaz. I don't understand that. Councilman Rubo, also guilty of playing politics with the housing ordinance, and that's not okay, because this is people who are in need of a roof over their head, an affordable one, and somewhere where they can feel safe. Families, parents, single mothers don't want to have to walk out in the community and they see, people addicted to drugs laid out on the street there, gun violence, because this is the only place they can afford to live, because they don't want us by the water. We don't make enough to live by the water. Thank you, Tasha Diaz. And thank you, John Rubo, playing with people. He was initially against it, John Rubo. Then he voted yes, but then ultimately voted against overturning the veto. Rubo said he voted yes again to imply that there was a need. We already know there's a need, John. We knew that. You didn't have to tell us. What we needed was a solution. A solution that was better than the one that was recently introduced. Much better. But it was all about the developers, because if they did 20%, then the developers were going to leave. So they'd rather have you leave, Yonkers, and developers, if you can't afford it here. See you later. Off to Florida, off to Georgia, Pennsylvania, right? So, and by the way, I saw Rubo today, and this is what I mean. I saw him driving today, one of the city cars. He was going to a friend's house, and I know he was going to a friend's house. I know this for a fact. Where he was going, you can't go anywhere else, right? So is that okay? Driving your city car on the weekend, going to a friend's house, that sounds like a personal thing to me. Are you saving your gas so the taxpayers could pay their gas, and then you kill the affordable housing? All right, so there's just no concern for the people who are just not in a financial position to really, be important, I guess, to them. Corazon Pineda supported the housing legislation all the way until it was killed, but she probably knew too that it wasn't going to pass. So make myself look good. Vote yes, vote yes, vote yes. But it should have been passed. There was a super majority. Remember that, right? Since she has introduced the building registry to identify slumlords and the affordable housing registry, which is not supported, in my opinion, by other council members, she hasn't really done much else. I'm just saying. Shanae Williams also supported fully the 20% housing ordinance. She was upset about it. She supports mixed income housing and said that she wants to see that more in the city of Yonkers, because that's what the city needs. She wants people of different incomes all mixed together. She believes that's good. She's not for low-income housing. She said, it's not about low-income housing, Tasha. We don't need low-income housing. We have plenty of low-income housing. We needed affordable housing, mixed income housing. Right? She was very upset at the fact that Tasha became the majority leader, because she felt that she deserved it. for many reasons. And that's why she had to list the reasons why Tasha Diaz was not qualified at that public meeting. It just was eating her inside. It was an ego thing. I would just not say nothing. It is what it is. People already know, right? The mayor has been in office and we have only had 10%. He wants to give 3%, which shows he's about the developers, not the residents. Nick and his real estate license has been working in cahoots with the developers. Hence, he bought a house around the block to build and add a pool house. Freddie, I wonder how long it took him to get those permits. He is the real mayor. People do not have one house and his pool house is very large. They are showing us their priorities. We need to believe them. Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, the mayor's going to do, and this is my thing, I've been thinking a lot about this because people say the mayor, Fred, talk about them, and the mayor, look, this is his last term. He's going to be up, he shouldn't have a reason to be running for another term as mayor unless something happens with term limits, which is something I'm going to mention in a minute here too. But the mayor is his job also is to kind of, move the city in a way that he visions it, right? So, and that's going to, not just be a priority. He's not going to focus on a priority of a set group of people, but the entire city as a whole, how to move it forward and into the future, right? So, yeah, he's going to be for the developers probably a little bit more than any specific one group because he's seen an overall picture. Now, it's up to the city council members who represent districts, right, that represent certain groups to, fight for them. And they should have overturned that, veto, and they could have passed it. They had the power. You know what I mean? That they had the power. Ultimately, they let the people down. Right? So that's why I say that. Because they're voted by people like Tasha Diaz and Corazon Pineda, although she was for it, and Shanae Williams, although she was for it, represent a constituency that largely is in need of affordable housing. Right? And even Rubo has a constituency. I'm sure there are people, they're elderly people all over the city of Yonkers that are in need of affordable housing, and they let them down. They did. They were elected to represent them and fight for them, right? And to be the checks and balance. And they're not checking or balancing anything. And so that's why I mentioned them, because those are the individuals that we have to definitely make sure when we vote our council members that we vote people that are going to represent us, the specific people that voted them in for what their needs are for their district and how things are happening in their district. And like District 1, Shanae Williams, a lot's changing there. And yet you're going to get these developments. I don't know how much mixed use they're going to be, especially once Lionsgate gets really fully going. You're going to have people with higher incomes coming in, and they're just going to keep going up. And then you're going to have all the Woolworth being developed and Ravine. And that's predominantly black community now. But will it stay like that? And are you considering that, Shanae, when you're fully supporting the developments? You know what I'm saying? So that's why I say that the people have to understand that as well. They have to make sure that they make the right decision when they're voting for their council members, right? That's why I talk about the city council members. Now it's July 23rd, and look, we still don't really have an ordinance, right? We have that 10%, and yes, the mayor's been in office all the time and it hasn't gone up. And I was talking to the city council president of White Plains, and they've gotten it up, a little more, I guess, but also their city's smaller, so it's a difference there in terms of the numbers, right? So what real legislation have the city council truly introduced and passed that really has made any significant impact, right? The last, I believe, legislation the city council passed that had any significant impact was back in 2018 when Mike Sabatino, then city council majority leader, and minority leader Mike Green, who still is the minority leader, introduced and the council eventually passed legislation to extend term limits. That's what I believe is the biggest and most impactful legislation they've made. And people are talking about it now and wondering, will term limits be eliminated altogether? And they had conversations about that. They said, I believe they tried that in 2001. People don't want to eliminate terms, and people didn't really want to extend term limits back in 2018. But the reason Mike Sabatino gave was that, we have to continue with what we started. That's what he said. So he says, it's not about me just necessarily supporting Mike Spano, but it's about, giving the people the option, the voters, the option to continue with, the leadership has started, excuse me, moving Yonkers in this direction that we're moving in. So, people are concerned that may be the same, reason behind eliminating term limits altogether now, right? Let's continue moving forward. Got to finish what we started. Absolutely not. Term elimination is next. They have too many people on the payroll, both family and friends. It's all about power. And ultimately, it comes down to the city council, as it did in 2018. And this is, again, why I comment on the city council. There are problems with Lionsgate. Apparently, it was poorly built, and they can feel the vibrations of the train and hear them. Not very good atmosphere when making movies. You know what? I thought about that, actually. And, I did sound recording and audio engineering for many years. And I understand, the need for, a quiet environment and soundproofing. And I thought about that. But I assumed that they also considered it, right? They are the experts after all, and that they considered it and that they soundproofed the walls or whatever enough so that they wouldn't hear the trains, but apparently not. Well, we'll see what happens. Is it all going to just be left abandoned, like some other things have been left here in the city of Yonkers, or things that have been built that are supposed to have been improving the community, new housing, and then they just gone to crap eventually, right? So, but anyway, what else other legislation? What have they done? Tell me, because I see a lot of comments, on articles and stuff that they're in, and it talks about food distribution. They give food. They're doing the food. They're doing toy drives, and again, that's great, but that's nothing that community organizations can't do and aren't already doing. And many times they're just attaching their name to it. Their job is to legislate what community organizations and community leaders cannot do. And that's where they have failed us. Look at the square. Why are they not talking about that? How are we going to handle this situation? It's getting worse. My wife today was just telling me a story how she was on her way home and a woman aggressively came up to the car asking for a dime, specifically a dime. And she was concerned because she came on the passenger side and she locked the doors where my kids were, and she told the woman to come around to the other side and gave her a bunch of change. And the woman was excited. But panhandling is something I've been seeing a lot all over the city now, more so than ever before. And I know they're passing a panhandling law, but besides that, what are you doing? Just going to start locking people up or giving them citations? They're going to have to panhandle some more, right? And then majority leader, as the chair of the education committee, what have you done in regards to the fact that they cannot build all three of the schools that were proposed by the Yonkers Schools Joint, or the Yonkers Joint Schools Board, Construction Board, whatever it's called, Yonkers Joint Schools Construction Board. They've come out and with a proposal for 3 new schools because there is a need here in the city of Yonkers. There's a shortage of space. 4,500 students, too many. They got 1 building approved, which is going up on McLean, but the other 2 cannot be built because there's not enough money. There's also a lot of renovations that are needed for many of the Yonkers existing school buildings, but that cannot be accomplished because of lack of funds. And as the chair of the education committee and the majority leader who sits in budget meetings, what are you doing about this? Are you discussing this? Are you concerned with this? We don't hear anything about it. But we hear about some month that was named for whatever, Hispanic Heritage Month, this month, that month. But what about what you guys are supposed to be actually doing? We need these schools built. We need those schools renovated. Where are those conversations? And growing every year. Yeah, student population, absolutely. So which is a reason why there is a severe need for the additional schools. But there's no money. The total project would cost $534 million. The first school that was built on McLean, or was being built on McLean, cost alone 68 or just north of $68 million. There's renovations that need to be done to schools like the Charro, that's in need of $30 million worth of renovations, including new windows, ventilation system. Right. So, and that's important. Ventilation system. They need air conditioners. Heating systems don't work properly, and they're not going to be able to do these renovations. So where's the money? And so again, to those who criticize me for criticizing our elected officials, please answer me. Where am I wrong? Correct me. Show me. Because if you can't do that, then don't comment. Don't comment, right? Or maybe you just don't want to see it. Is that what it is? What about the gun violence? We had a violent weekend, and they didn't go up to the areas where there were the shootings. They didn't go to the community to speak to the people, assure them that they were going to be working on it, that they're going to be doing something to address this gun violence. And what have they done? Shanae Williams puts out a statement, a press release calling for an end to gun violence, but that's it. What are you actually doing to address it? Nothing. Nothing. And what about the permit issues that people have been having here in the city? What have you guys done to assist the people here in the city that have had permit issues? Tasha Diaz, the majority leader, on a recent live meeting, criticized the building commissioner, Samborelli, accusing him of mistreating women because she didn't get a response on a permit inquiry for a church. She felt that she should have gotten special privileges. Instead of, accusing Samborelli and embarrassing yourself on a live meeting, why don't you go to the building department and see what's going on there? Why are there issues? Why is it taking people 2 years, 3 years to get a permit? Rather than just naming Samborelli the commissioner, because that's all that was done to address the issue. And it's obviously still a problem. So go there, figure it out, come up with a solution, and get things moving along. That's how you handle it. But no, she goes on a live meeting to insult the man, right? And that's all she did. And that pissed a lot of people off, because I hear now that put a target on her back, from the very individuals that once supported her. That was a no-no. You don't do that, right? You don't do that. So why is there such a problem? We're working out solutions for the residents, but they seem to work out the solutions just fine for developers. Because the voters aren't there. Those neighborhoods don't get people elected 1,000%. 1,000%. And I mentioned that on the podcast the other day when I spoke about the shootings. They don't vote in that community, so they're not going to go there. They're not going to concern themselves with the demographic of people that don't vote. It's just a waste of time for them. That's why Tasha Diaz does fundraisers in Pelham. Nowhere near District 3. And does fundraisers asking for $500, $250, $1,000, something that her constituents cannot come up with. Hell, nowadays, most people cannot come up with. So she's not doing it for her constituents and the people she represents. She's doing it for those who vote and those who fund her campaign. Those that want favors. These people hate us. It feels like that, right? No, it's just that they love themselves so much. Foil Nick Spano's pool house permits. How long did it take him to get the permits, and why Samborelli was hired? That maybe, and I'm sure that he would get his permits right away. I mean, he is Nick Spano. I have no doubt, right? A lot of people have gotten their permits right away, even if their last name wasn't Spano, because I hear that certain individuals, like Zahi Jerris, have a scheme running, and it may not be going well anymore. And that's probably why Tasha Diaz did that the other day in the meeting with Sam Borelli. But if you paid him $2,500 to $5,000, I hear, you get your permits expedited. That's watch some white people in Crestwood get killed, then we will see outrage. Yeah. And I don't want to make it like about, because I don't want to be divisive in that way about white, blacks, and Hispanics or Asians or, we're all together in this. Ultimately for me, I believe that a lot of it is mostly based on, financial, and class division, right? Social class division, social levels, right? You have the elite people that are wealthier because you have the Spanish elite that don't do anything for the Spanish folks, Hispanics. You have the black elites that up there don't do nothing for the blacks, the white elites, right? But yeah, as somebody in Crestwood, definitely. But if it was in a poor community where there were whites and they were poor and they didn't vote, they wouldn't go there either. So it's really about, economic status, and who votes and who contributes money. And in that community, yeah, a lot of people probably vote and will contribute a lot of money. Things will not change until people come out and vote on election day. Yeah, and that's why it's very important to get people from communities that normally may not come out to vote to come out and vote and be actively engaged in the election process. You have to show that you are, going to come out. You're going to hold people accountable, so that way you can get their respect, get them to listen. Oh, they're coming out. They're voting. Let's go over there. Let's see what's going on now. Let's try to help them with that event, because had we been supportive of their event to begin with, something that they do every year and have been since, I believe, 2009, maybe that wouldn't have happened, because they go and support other events. They allow other events to do certain things, right? While they're having those events. And I don't want to get into all that because I don't want to, bring anyone else up into this, but I'm just saying that, depending who you are, you get permits to do whatever at your events. You get security, you get everything, right? But nobody cares about that side. I mean, look how they leave it. Look how they leave that area, right? And I was talking to someone earlier today, before I get off it, again, like that. This is why I speak of the elected officials, and because what do, right? And also some of the organizations, and I'm not, trying to be negative, and I'm not, looking for me to benefit in any way. But they're allocating funds to certain organizations or whatever, then there should be a result. There should be, something we can see. Okay, yeah, that's making a difference, right? And I'm not talking about just anyone. I'm talking about all of them in general, right? Because I've seen some of these organizations. They say, oh, this is what we do. We're getting money to help this certain demographic, certain population with certain needs. They have these issues, these needs and whatever. And we're going to, but yet they don't engage these individuals. It's like almost it's all for show. Just put it on. Look at what we're doing. Let's take pictures and let's put it up on Facebook. And they're not really, because I've seen opportunities missed by these individuals to engage the people they say they're supposed to be helping, and they didn't. I get to know people in the community. I get to know the homeless people. I get to know them by name. Like the woman that has the raccoon, her name is Jamie. Her raccoon's name is Rocky. He actually has an Instagram page. Go check it out. She wants people to, follow him. Right? I get to know them. I get to know who they are. It's not just, here, take a picture while I'm giving you some food, and then look at me. Right? So when you ask, what do I do in the community? I've done a lot. And I haven't announced everything I've done. And I'm not going to go down a list of things that I've done, because I don't have to do that. It's not even my job. It's not my job. I'm not paid to do this. I'm not paid to do any of it. So I don't have to be. There's no accountability for me on that, right? But it is to those who get elected and make money and utilize the city car, even on their personal time, to save gas and get all these other benefits. Then they need to be doing their job. And that's why I talk about them. And I'm Freddie Vasquez, and this is Basement Politics. Thank you for joining me. Oh, and by the way, folks, do you guys remember Flight TWA 800? It was supposedly blew up in the sky. There was a spark that caused an explosion in the fuselage, and it went down, killing all 230 passengers. It was on its way to France from JFK Airport. Many witnesses had said they saw a missile going up and hit the plane. Well, if you don't know, yeah, a missile actually hit the plane. More information is coming out, evidence is coming out, and a Navy, I don't know, officer who was on the ship at the time, not the one that shot the missile, but was on a ship that was engaging in military exercises in the area. They were testing out a new missile guidance system that was supposed to work, while planes were flying, friendlies were flying. It was supposed to be able to identify an enemy versus a commercial airliner, and it messed up and it hit the plane. And he's coming out and he's telling a story, but many people aren't listening. But I just thought it was important to know. I don't know if you know anybody. This is New York. Obviously, a lot of people on that plane were from New York, and it just goes to show, what happens that we are not told, and it's very important to just not listen to what they tell us on the television, on social media, but to do our own research and fully understand what world what's really going on in the world that we live in. What's really happening in this world, right? And for some of us, we see it here in politics in Yonkers. It's no different on a national level. It's all the same. So when you talk about election fraud here in Yonkers, you have to believe it happens on a national level. So for those, I'm talking about people who say, no, it didn't happen in the election, but they're telling me about election fraud here in Yonkers. I mean, you can't be hypocritical. Just understand the world we live in, folks. It's not all peaches and creams like we like to think, and we have to hold our elected officials accountable. We must get out and vote. We must engage in our political system. We must just engage in society in general. We have to be engaging with each other more. We've all kind of checked out. The entire city is compromised. Tell me what organizations were at the city council meetings for affordable housing. I have the list of ones that were not. I even called them and asked them if they were coming. I wish we had advocates like we did back during the desegregation case. Yeah, a lot has changed over time, over the years. Money corrupts everything, right? Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And when you involve money in things, it starts to get corrupt. And that's just what's happened, with some of our organizations out here and individuals who operate these organizations. People now are all about status and title, and look at me, look what I'm doing. And there's no more substance anymore. It's like no substance. They don't really actually want to get things done, right? So now you're just wasting money. And that's why I talk about it, because it seems like certain money keeps getting allocated to the same, individuals, organizations, or whatever. And look what we got going on in the city. What are you doing? What are you guys doing, really? That's all I'm saying. What are you doing? What are you doing? I mean, why are you getting all that money? Anyway, folks, I'm Freddie Vasquez. I'm up out of here. Thank you for joining me tonight. So again, if you have any issues with my podcast, please engage me in a conversation, that it can be civil and we both can learn from, because I'm always open to learning and hearing other people. But from what I've seen in my research, I haven't seen much accomplished. I've seen a lot of letdowns. I wish you could prove me wrong. I'm Freddie Vasquez. Thank you, folks. Have a blessed and happy rest of the weekend. I will see you mañana. Get up out of here. Tasha. I am Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics. Thank you, folks, for joining me. Once again, our elected officials just let down after let down. But again, folks, I could be wrong. I don't mind being wrong. Please prove me wrong if you think I'm wrong. That's all I ask. Don't come on there making silly comments. It's a serious matter. It's a serious business. All right? So, please. Anyway, folks, thank you for appreciating it. I'm up out of here. Have a great night.
Yeah. Are we? Let's make it happen, guys. Make me happy today.
5 minutes from the BX. Whole team seeing checks. Hood now and we next. I'm from Yonkers. Home of Mary X on the blocks in 06. ODG taking somebody's spot. I'm from Yonkers. Come on, Hat. We can make it happen. Hop in your whip. We 15 minutes from Manhattan. I'm from Yonkers. And all the other bros know we real. Now on 4, exit 5 for the soul mill. You from, nigga? Like, that's cool and all that, but me, man, why yo, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, nigga, why yo, nigga? Exit 5 on the small middle. It ain't hard to get. Nah, it ain't hard. Nigga, right. Yo, I'm from YO, niggas 6 grams and flip dust, and niggas be blowing bogeys on back of the beeline bus. Really young, slow bounds, Mofa Cottage and School Street. The middle of the square was where all of the goons meet. Ashburton, Locust Hill, Warburton, Ravine, niggas hustle all day, trying to stack up their green. Can't forget about Orchard, Van Cole, and the Elm. Yonkers Ave, Chestnut niggas be making the sales. North Broadway, South Broadway, all day. South Yonkers is where you find all of the Oyes, Highland, Brook, Shawn, and the niggas on Jackson. Kima Vista, Riverdale, all them niggas be stacking. Got Jones on Lawrence and the niggas on Post. And all them niggas on Elliott that be busting their toast. Harriet McLean and all of them niggas on Caroline. Corey Lab niggas on Craig sipping them very fine. Yonkers. 5 minutes from the BX. Whole team seeing checks. Hood now and we next. I'm from Yonkers. Home of Mary X on the blocks in 06. OBG taking somebody's spot. I'm from Yonkers. Come on, Hat. We can make it happen. Hop in your whip. We 15 minutes from Manhattan. I'm from Yonkers. And all the other bros know we real. Now on 4, exit 5 for the soul mill.
Freddie wins. Fatality.
I was raised in housing. I don't think you were. I want. We're gonna leave it where it is. Let's vote on this. Let's get it popping. Like I said, political games that are being played. I was raised in housing. I don't think you were. I went to Yonkers public schools. I don't think you did. We can go on all night with this, honey.
Freddie wins. Fatality.
You're watching Basement Politics with my dad, Freddie Vasquez.
You're watching Basement Politics with my dad, Freddie Vasquez.
Thank you for watching Basement Politics with my husband, Freddie Vasquez.
Freddie wins. Fatality.
No!